Hello and welcome guys to our first English episode of Dr. Fantasy. And when I say English, because we have been providing this kind of FPL content over the past 3 seasons, but it was in Arabic, and there was always a plan to create some sort of English content. However, the plan was to go from next season, but given that FPL have provided us with a second chance, which is some sort of a new season anyway, so we thought why not to bring this plan forward and start doing this English content from now on. So we create FPL content weekly basis, so we have a preview for each game week and a review for each game week, mainly based on numbers, statistics mixed with some eye tests. We've received very good feedback from the Arabic followers here, so make sure you subscribe, share that content, and enjoy the FPL content with Dr. Fantasy. So let's start in with our first English episode, which is mainly about fixtures and price points in a way that you haven't seen before. So we'll start with the clean sheets, and when I say you haven't seen before, it's that mainly when we look at FDR or any kind of fixture difficulty tables, it tends to classify the games as a difficult, easy and moderate fixtures, but it doesn't put into account whether this team has got good attacking stats or bad attacking stats. So what's the point of having easy games, for example for Fulham, without having the ability to provide you with clean sheets? And it doesn't make sense if Fulham have got a run of 3-4 easy fixtures and you go and bring a defender from them while they are not going to provide you with those valuable 4 points for each clean sheet. So here we focus on the difficulty of the games, but based on the difference between the XGC, or the expected goals conceded for each team, and the expected goals or XG of the opponent. So if we look at, for example, at Man City, we study their XGC against the XG of each of the teams that they will face, let's say within the next 8 weeks, as we discussed in this table. I've put some sort of a key for the table because we're not classifying them into the usual difficult, moderate and easy games, but it's very easy, equal and difficult and very difficult games. Make sure you screenshot this table. It will be very handy and very useful later on. Data is based on information from Fantasy Football Scout and Fantasy Football Hub. And then let's discuss the defenders' price points based on that table, which classifies them in order of the highest probability of having clean sheets to the lowest probability of having clean sheets among the top 10 teams from the defending point of view over the next 8 weeks. I'll start with premium defenders, and I've got 3 premium defenders for you. So Cancelo from City, Alexander-Arnold from Liverpool, and his teammate Robertson. And when I talk about premium defenders, I always tend to pay more attention to the attacking stats, because these are not the defenders that I'm not expecting just clean sheets from them. These are the ones that I'm looking for attacking threat, looking for those assists or goals points. So we look at the appearances, and it seems that Cancelo is probably the most secured together with Trent, and there is a slight risk of rotation about Robertson, which probably puts me a bit off him, but still he's a very good choice. But if we look at the numbers, in a season which we describe as probably the worst for Trent Alexander-Arnold so far, he's actually 3rd amongst defenders in chance creation, so he's created 26 chances. Not only this, the quality of his chances are really good, so he's the first among defenders in creating big chances. 7 out of those 26 were big chances, compared to, for example, 0 big chances created for Cancelo, who is proven to be very popular. I'm sure that many people will put Cancelo in their second part of the season drafts, but if we look at the numbers, probably Trent is not as bad as we think. Robertson has got probably some also good stats, second only to Trent Alexander-Arnold, for example, for the XGI, which is a metric that I usually prefer and like, because it summarizes the attacking threat of this player per 90 minutes, which is expected goal involvement. Cancelo is only 0.17, Trent is 0.32, and he's 3rd amongst defenders, only followed by Robertson, who is 0.30. The only downside of Liverpool defenders, which makes me a bit more understandable why people are choosing Cancelo in this price point, is that City is the first amongst all teams in the first half of the season in XGC, or expected goals conceded as a team, best defense in the league, and no doubt about it. But On the other hand, Liverpool is 12th in XGC. But again, Liverpool hasn't become a bad team just in a night. They will recover, I think, and they will have a better second half of the season. So if you want to go with the template, I would always recommend having a premium defender, because it's an easy price point. Whenever any defender comes up to the picture, then you can easily switch to that defender. Having that price point, I feel, is vital in your team structure. So I understand why many people will go for Cancelo, which is totally fine. But if you're looking for a bit something more spicy, more differential, I think Trent Alexander-Arnold will have a good second half of the season. We'll move on to the mid-price defenders, which looks a bit easier here. So we've got Trippier, we've got Perisic, we've got Reece James from Chelsea. And again, we'll look same metrics, but look at Trippier. He's making a mockery of his price tag at the start of the season, 5 million. This is ridiculous. Trippier has created 34 chances, 7 big chances, top with Trent Alexander-Arnold. Top defender in Fantasy Premier League so far. He's needing only 294 minutes to create a total of 1 XA, which is massive. His XGI per 90 is 0.33, which is second only to Perisic, and he's much more secure than Perisic. So Perisic, if we talk about him just in isolation, he's a fantastic player, fantastic choice, but the problem comes with a very hefty price of rotation. He's played probably every single minute with Croatia in the World Cup, and I'm sure he will get some rest, and even if he doesn't get that rest, he will still get plenty of rotation with all the choices that Conte has in his wing backs and his tendency to rotate his wing backs. So I'll stay away from Perisic, but Trippier I think is locked in every team. Reece James had some good numbers in the 7 appearances that he's had this season, and he's a well-proven asset. We know how Reece James can do. He can do loads of damage. Reece James can easily have 18, 21 pointer in any game, but the problem is we're still not sure about the defensive shape of Chelsea, so I think Graham Potter is still finding his feet around. And Graham Potter is known to be one of those managers that take time to implement his way and his philosophy on the team. So, yeah, Reece James can be a good punt, 5.8, not massive, so you can take that risk. But I think from this price point, I would probably stick to Trippier and look for budget defenders. Now we'll come to the budget defenders who have been really helpful and providing high value for money this season. So I've got 4 defenders: Cresswell, Dalot from United, White and Estupiñán. I'll start with White because I don't see much from Gabriel and Saliba to provide over White to justify that extra bit of money. So you can go with White and save that. Arsenal is second, and only to Manchester City from the expected goals conceded over the first half of the season. So a very solid team defensively. And I wouldn't even go against having a double of Arsenal defence. I'm a big fan of doubling defence anyway. So having a double defence of Arsenal is not a very bad idea. Estupiñán from Brighton I think looks like a good differential. He's the expected goal involvement per 90 is 0.22, which is more than any other defender in that price range. So keep an eye on Estupiñán. He can be your differential in the second half of the season, and Brighton is 5th in XGC. So again, good defensive numbers. Dalot from United has had a fantastic first half of the season and had a very good tournament in World Cup with Portugal. So again, he can be a very good choice. I like him really. Cresswell is okay. West Ham has got good defence, 4th in XGC, and Cresswell has created 30 chances, which is second only to the 34 of Trippier. But the quality of those chances are not great, so it's only 3 chances out of those 30 were big chances. So yeah, he's okay, but I'll probably prefer Dalot, White and Estupiñán to him in that price range. Before we finish the defence section, let's take a quick look at goalkeepers, and I've got 4 for you: Kepa from Chelsea, Fabianski, West Ham, Pope, Newcastle and Ramsdale, Arsenal. Just to cut long story short, I can see why many people are going for Kepa, but I've got just 2 fears from this choice. The first one is that Kepa is still in the rehabilitation process, hasn't returned fully to training. So there are questions about whether he will be ready for game week 17 or not. And the second thing is that I've just mentioned, I don't trust really Chelsea's defence. So yeah, if this is your choice, I can see it will be very, very popular. Probably everyone will have Danny Ward as the other keeper, and then with Kepa as their second keeper. That's fine. But I'll probably stick to one of those, Ramsdale or Pope. I told you I'm a big fan of doubling up on defences, and one of the ways to double up is to have a defender and a goalkeeper from the same team. I'll probably go Ramsdale and one of Arsenal defenders. But if you would like to go Pope and one of Newcastle defenders, which is Trippier, that's fine. If you're not a big fan of having double ups, because you will have a Trippier and an Arsenal defender anyway, I think Fabianski is a good choice as well. And his saves per 90 actually is better than Pope and Ramsdale. We'll move on to the goals or the attacking table, and again, same principles apply here. So we're not talking about whether the game is difficult or easy for the team as a whole, but we're talking about the probability of my players, my attackers, of scoring goals in those games. For example, if Man City have got a double here in game week 20 against Man United and Tottenham, I'm not saying that those are easy games for Man City, that they will win both games easily, might even lose both. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that Man City attackers can easily score in those games. Not very easy, but they can be classified as an easy, so second category in that table. Again, a team like Liverpool will play Chelsea in game week 21. I'm not saying again that Liverpool will win easily against Chelsea, might draw, might even lose, but Chelsea defence, if we compare their XGC compared to the XG of Liverpool, we'll find that Liverpool attackers can score easily in that game. Not as easy, for example, as against Leicester, against Brentford, against Everton, but again, still an easy game. So we'll apply those principles to the price points of attackers. And when I talk about attackers, people who have been watching me previously, I tend to classify attackers collectively as midfielders plus strikers. So I do not tend to separate those two categories. The reason is, at the end of the day, you will play 7 out of those as a maximum every game week. So you can play, whether you play 3-4-3 or 3-5-2, at the end of the day, you will have 7 attackers in your starting 11 and 1 as a bench. Some people prefer to play some sort of like 4-4-2 or something like that, but again, with the abundance of strikers that we're having this season, I think most people will go with 3 strikers or 2 strikers and 5 midfielders. But again, we'll talk about them collectively. So from each price points, we'll see who are the best choices, who are the best players from the numbers point of view, and then we can pick up that player, whether this is a striker or this is a midfielder. Let's crack in and see which are the players from the attacking point of view that have the highest chance of scoring points over the next 8 weeks. So again, like we started with premium defenders, we'll start with premium attackers, and here I've got for you the 4 premium attackers that we've got in the game. So Haaland, KDB, Salah and Kane. And when we talk about those 4, or any premium attacker in general, for the sake of the value of money, I think the only option that justifies you, or the only reason that justifies you paying that much money, that amount of money for a certain player from that category, is that you're going to captain them. If you have a premium player and you don't captain them regularly, I think you're losing the value for the money you're paying. So we've got one parameter here that I tend to add when I compare premium players, which is the double digits. How many double digits had this player have over the course of the first part of the season? So Haaland had 5 times double digits, 10 plus points. KDB, Salah and Kane, each one of them had 3 occasions when they had 10 points or more. And this shows you the explosiveness of Haaland, and shows you that KDB and Salah and Kane, from that point of view, look a bit more similar this season. If we talk about XGI per 90, which is again a metric that I use to indicate how likely this player is going to blank in that game week, because mostly this will be your captain, and the worst case scenario is that your captain blanks in a game week. It ruins your game week on most occasions. Of course, sometimes the rest of your team will make up for that, but on most occasions you will have a disastrous game week once your captain blanks. But Haaland has an XGI per 90 of 1.14. I tend to translate this as the chances of him to score or assist for every 9 minutes is 114%. He nearly doesn't blank. KDB and Kane nearly the same, 0.74 and 0.73, and Salah, probably his worst season so far, is 0.68. And Haaland tends to translate those underlying stats into numbers, so his points per start is 9.8 per start. KDB and Kane nearly the same, 6.8 and 6.8, and nothing really much to differentiate between them apart from 1 point that I mentioned later, and then Salah with 5.9. So from what you can see is that most of the talk now is about whom you bring with Haaland, whether KDB, Salah or Kane. From the numbers, KDB and Kane doesn't have much between them. However, Kane is 1 million cheaper. Kane have penalties in his locker, but KDB have some set pieces but not penalties in the presence of Haaland, which is a massive advantage. And Kane will cover Tottenham for you. The only downside of that is that Kane with Haaland will have you two premium players as two strikers, which is a bit not the best thing for your team structure. But again, it's worth considering, and we will have a more detailed talk about that when we talk about team structures and drafts in the next episode. Semi-premium attackers are those ones with the price in between the premium and the mid-priced players, and I've got two choices for you here, Fernandes and Darwin. If we talk about underlying numbers, Fernandes didn't have the best underlying numbers in the first part of the season. However, now with the departure of Cristiano Ronaldo and having penalties with him, we've seen him having a great tournament with Portugal in the World Cup. Fernandes can be a good option. I'm not going to read too much into his numbers because they weren't great apart from the chances created per 90 where he was top amongst Manchester United players. But he can be still a good choice if you would like to go with someone differential and is a well-proven asset. We know him since he arrived to the Premier League. Darwin has superb underlying numbers, 0.89 XGI per 90, which is even better than Kane, better than KDB, but he's not transforming this into points. So his points per start is 4.7 points per start, which is show you how Darwin can miss loads of chances. He gets 1.75 big chance per game, but still misses most of them. But in the last 2-3 game weeks before the World Cup, he showed some signs of being effective, as we would expect from a player with that magnitude. So let's hope that Darwin carries on this form. He wasn't having the great tournament in the World Cup, but I think he can also be a very good option if you don't want to go with Salah and you want a piece of that Liverpool attack in their upcoming game weeks. The biggest dilemma this season, the mid-priced attackers, and here I've got 8 options for you. Shows you how big is the choice decision here, and it will make, I think it will make a big part of your season which mid-priced attacker you get at which time. So we've got Foden, Maddison, Zaha, Saka, and we've got Kulusevski, Wilson, Tony and Trossard. If we look purely from the XGI point of view, unfortunately the best two in this category are the two strikers. We've got loads of strikers that are now looking for midfielders. So again, it doesn't help that much that the two on top amongst this price range is Wilson and Tony with 0.78 and 0.66. Wilson actually is fantastic. Both of them have got penalties. But if I would choose between those two, same price, I would probably go with Wilson, just because Newcastle as a team is in a better form than Brentford, and we know now that Isaac is not returning anytime soon, so there is no risk of rotation at all. So Wilson should be nailed to start every game week, even with the fixture congestion. I know that his time will be managed at some point, but again, he's a very good option, I believe. From the midfield point of view, the highest from the points per start is Foden. However, his underlying stats are not as good as his points, and there is always a risk of rotation. However, I still see him as a very good option, especially if you can't stretch up to Kevin De Bruyne. So Foden probably for me is the third choice from City attacker after Haaland and after KDB. Maddison, in contrast to Foden, will provide you with this kind of security. So we know that he will start every game. He will play 90 minutes all games. His underlying stats also are not the best, but we know that Maddison have been overperforming his numbers over the years, so it's not something surprising or something that will be one-off season. We know that he will keep, with his quality, he will keep overperforming his numbers. So I really like him. And he's got 2 difficult games initially and then a very good run of fixtures. If you would like to go with someone like Zaha for his first good 2 game weeks against Fulham and Bournemouth, and then switch to Maddison, provided that you keep in the bank that extra bit of money, yeah, that can be a good strategy to go. Saka, wonderful player, takes penalties, underlying numbers okay, but I think if you're going to go with one of those 2 8 midfielders, which I would personally recommend, I think there are other cheaper options in Arsenal attack, which will provide probably same or even more attacking input. Kulusevski is a good option, especially with Richarlison's injury. We know that he will play. If you want a piece of the Tottenham attack and you can't stretch to Harry Kane either for financial reasons or for team structure reasons, I think Kulusevski also has got some good underlying numbers, although the sample is small because he hasn't played much this season. Trossard is okay, but I would probably stick to the other options that we have mentioned in this category. Budget attackers, and they are very useful this season, especially if you would like to go with a freemium structure and you go with more than 2 premiums or a 2.5 premiums. So I've got Rodrigo, I've got Odegaard, Martinelli, the Arsenal pair, and then another pair from Manchester United, Rashford and Martial and Mitrovic. Again, from XGI point of view, Mitrovic tops all of them, and I believe he can be the way to go with Wilson and with Haaland if you don't want to go Kane at up top in your team. In the other players in the midfield, Rodrigo actually has been having an impressive season with 0.61 XGI per 90, and he's translating that into points, 6.3 points per game. He's got a game against Man City in game week 17 and then a good run of fixtures. If you would like to go with him from the start, I'm not against that at all, and I wouldn't be surprised if Leeds score against Man City. He's a very, very good option, 6.3 million. I think you can't go with a better option probably at that price range. Odegaard 6.4 and Martinelli 6.8. Numbers actually are in favour of Odegaard. He ended the first part of the season with same number of points. 5.9 per start for Odegaard, 5.5 points per start for Martinelli, and with Odegaard 0.4 million cheaper with better underlying stats, I would prefer Odegaard, to be honest. I think he's been going under the radar for the whole season since we started. But I remember people who have been watching us in the Arabic version, we were talking about previously before the start of the season that he can be the Arsenal's KDB, and I think he's been doing great so far this season. So I would probably prefer going to Odegaard than going Martinelli and going Saka. I know that many people have got loads of value tied in Martinelli, and I'm not against going with that. He would be probably the safer approach with his high percentage of being in teams. But yeah, if you would like something more differential and it's a calculated risk and with a better underlying numbers, I think Odegaard can be your way to go. Martial, with his history of being injury prone, I'm not really keen on having that risk. Rashford is a good option, and with Sancho not fit yet, so I think he's got secured minutes at least for the first 3 game weeks, where Manchester United will have their best run of fixtures in the second half of the season. If you can't go Bruno, or you think this is a bit of an extra money that you are paying for, Rashford also can be a very good option in the midfield. Cheap attackers, and these are the ones that will be your 4th or 5th midfielder or your 3rd striker. We've got Almiron, we've got Solanke, we've got Pereira from Fulham, and we've got Somerville from Leeds. Almiron, of course, I think is locked in every team. He's 5.8 million, 0.43 XGI per 90, massive for his price, and he's a bit overperforming, 6.2 points per game, but I've just seen him having that friendly game against Al Hilal club, and he's just came off the bench to score twice and hit the woodwork. It seems that he's carrying on with this goal scoring form with 5.8. I think you can't get any better option at that price, so he's locked in every team. Solanke 5.8, yeah, not massive underlying numbers. Bournemouth in general, not very attacking team, and I would prefer to go with a 3 proper strikers than going with Solanke. And then if I want to go cheap, there are options in midfield to go there. Pereira 4.5, secure start, but if you're going Mitrovic, you're covered for Fulham double game week, and I'll probably try to go a bit more spicy with someone like Somerville, 4.4 million, 0.34 XGI per 90, and 7.3 points per game. I know that sample is small, but he was looking very promising in the last games of Leeds before the World Cup. So why not? They've got a good run of fixtures, so I think he can be a good option as your 5th midfielder. Now we've reached the end of this episode, the player choices and the price points and the fixtures tables. what I would personally recommend, go quickly through that again, get a pen and a paper, write down the short list for the players that you have or you decide to put in your team, and then come back in 2 days' time to the drafts episode, see which one of those drafts that I'm going to put 10 drafts in the next episode, see which one of them match the choices or the short list that you have put, and then you will find your perfect draft for the restart of the season. I hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. I'll see you in the next episode. Thank you for now, and goodbye.